A mind ripe for learning. From the very beginning, Abraham Lincoln was different, and in a way that many of his neighbors, and especially his father, did not approve. Unlike almost everyone else he grew up with, Lincoln was intensely interested in words and meanings. He learned to read and write at a very early age, actively seeking out books to borrow and taking notes on what he read. To his father and most of his peers, this was regarded as little more than thoughts, a way of avoiding his farm course. But Lincoln was encouraged in his studies by his stepmother, who later told Lincoln's former law partner, William H. Herndon, that while the boy didn't like physical labor, he was not lazy but was diligent for knowledge, wished to know, and if pains and labor would get it, he was sure to get it. While his useful reading has always been a prominent feature of the Lincoln legend, it was probably not as important in the long term as his writing. After Lincoln's assassination, Herndon sought out and interviewed the president's former Indiana neighbors, many of whom remembered that the young Lincoln had distinguished himself as a talented writer of essays and poems, and in the end his writing would prove at least as important as his deeds, for they are among the most familiar as well as the most influential in all of American letters. When he left home and struck out on his own at the age of 22, Lincoln settled in the small village of New Salem, Illinois, where he spent 6 eventful years. In proportion in appearance, he was frequently described as a gawky and ill-dressed, but the other residents soon discovered he had many assets. In addition to being intelligent and surprisingly well informed, he was unusually good-natured and friendly. He excelled in popular athletic contests as jumping and throwing weights. He was an unusually strong and nearly unbeatable wrestler, and though he did not drink, he was convivial and had great ability as a storyteller. He was thus well liked, and when the military was called out to fight Indians during his first years in New Salem, he was elected captain of the local company. In recalling this honor many years later, he allowed that he had not since had any success in life which gave him so much satisfaction. Supporting himself with a variety of jobs, Lincoln studied assiduously during his New Salem years to make up for his lack of formal education, which he remained painfully conscious all his life. Borrowing books wherever he could, he studied history and biography, and he displayed an eager appetite for literature, being particularly fond of Shakespeare and of the Scottish poet Robert Burns. Though raised in a Baptist and church-going family, he resisted making a religious commitment, and under the influence of such 18th-century rationalists as the Comte de Volney and Thomas Paine, Lincoln developed a skeptical view of basic Christian doctrines. If his childhood church-going did not implant religious belief, it did stimulate an early interest that would have lifelong consequences, namely public speaking. Having entertained his playmates in backwoods Indiana with imitations of sermons and stump speeches, he now joined a New Salem debating society to develop his abilities as a speaker.